Hi everyone, welcome to Yoga LJ. My name is LJ. I'm a yoga teacher and a registered nurse, and today I'll be talking to you about Urdhva, Mukha, Svanasana. Urdhva, Mukha, Svanasana in Sanskrit. Urdhva means upward, Mukha, face, Svana, dog. So you may have heard of it, upward facing dog. This is a wonderful back bend. Back bends tend to be energizing and stimulating, so it helps to counteract feelings of depression and fatigue. It also is a wonderful pose. If you're someone that tends to sit a lot during the day, it's a counter pose to that. It helps to open the chest, drop the shoulders, and lengthen your hip flexor muscles, which tend to get tight from sitting. So I'll start by demonstrating the pose, and then I'll get into the anatomical cues and alignment, talk about modifications, how to learn the pose, and touch on injuries. If you have a neck or a low back injury, you'll want to be cautious doing upward dog. I will finish with the tip, a really fun tip that helps us learn the transitions from upward dog to downward dog. So we'd be starting in Chaturanga. We would finish the exhalation in Chaturanga, and then we would press the hands and feet, inhale to upward dog, Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. Shoulders back, press the palms, feet pressing, hips are pulling up and forward, chest through the arms, and gazing down the bridge of the nose. So that's what it looks like. So the hands are pressing, pulling back energetically to pull the chest through the arms, and the feet are acting as brakes, counteracting the hands to lengthen the spine and get the back bend. And when we press the hands down, we want to press the finger pads and the fingers, which help to externally rotate the humerus bone, which helps to keep the shoulder down the back and stabilized. So we engage the anterior serratus and latissimus dorsi. Latissimus dorsi are the muscles on the low side back, anterior serratus between the ribs, and these muscles work synergistically together to pull the shoulder blades down the back. Some teachers may also mention the rhomboids, which are muscles in the upper mid-back. And these muscles pull the shoulder blades together towards the spine. So some teachers say that this actually restricts the back bend because we want to pull the chest through the arms. So we open the heart like a lion. So pulling the shoulder blades together may restrict that. But then again, the shoulder blades pulling towards the spine also stabilizes the shoulder. So very common in Ashtanga, you'll hear slight variations in poses from different teachers. There's no right or wrong. At the end of the day, you try what works for you, and you may do a variation for months or years and decide to switch after a while. That happens all the time. So up to you if you want to engage the rhomboids to pull the shoulders towards the spine. I think it's a good idea for people who tend to have shoulder weaknesses or injuries. It's a safer action. And the core is engaged. Engaging the core helps to stabilize protect the low back. So back bends do not come from the low back, they come from the upper back. There's this tendency, some people think back bending is from the low back. It never is. Low back is very hypermobile and has low stability, so high risk for injury. So we engage the core in back bends to protect and stabilize the low back. So the actual back bend is from the upper back, usually around the heart center, or like behind the heart here is the back bend. And the pelvis is upwards and pulling forward, which lengthens the hip flexors. So the pectineus muscle, the tensor fascia lata, the iliacus muscle, the psoas, these are the hip flexors that get to lengthen in this pose as we contain the core. And the legs are very active. So we're pressing the tops of the feet a lot. You're really pressing tops of feet here, which pushes the quads up the leg, spins the inner thighs up. So, and having strong legs helps to also stabilize the pelvis And I find that when I spin my inner thighs a lot, it helps me engage my core better as well. So those are the actions of Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. Another note is the head. So we pull the head back to open the chest, and the more you pull your head back, the more back bend you're gonna get. At the same time, you don't wanna overdo it, and we wanna keep the gaze down the bridge of the nose. So if you have any neck issues, totally fine to just leave your gaze facing forward. You don't have to bring your head back. You can just keep your gaze forward like so, and you'll still feel opening in the chest and a bit of bend in the upper back. Now, another variation is that some teachers will say when you bring your head back, you can gaze to the third eye for the drishti, for the focus. And while that's okay, I tend to keep my drishti downwards, even if I pull my head back, and that's just to stay humble. So in the Ashtanga practice, we often work with ego. Ego is an aspect that can get in the way of our practice sometimes, and I just find gazing downwards helps to work with the ego. It's a personal preference. So if you have a low back pain, you want to be cautious with this pose. Probably start with cobra, but there are things that you don't want to do that anyone should not do in this pose. Is that you don't want to dump your chest down. You need to actively straighten your arms and pull your shoulders back to open the chest through the arms. And like I mentioned, we don't want to bend from the low back in upward dog. You don't want to force the bend from your low back. And we don't want to put all the weight on the wrist joint. We want to distribute through the hand so we can externally rotate the humerus bone. So moving towards modifications, cobra is the most common modification for this pose, so I'll demonstrate that first. We'd be on our stomachs, wrists under the shoulders, feet are active, legs active, knees off the floor. You lift the head up and back, wide collarbones, and the elbows are pulling towards each other. And so this is cobra. So safe for your low back, helps find mobility in the upper back, strengthen your back muscles and your legs. Another variation is Sphinx. And I think this has a little bit more mobility for the upper back and core. So you bring your forearms to the ground. Your shoulders, elbows, and wrists are in one line. Same thing with the legs, knees off the floor, feet pressing. You inhale, ears back. Exhale, drop the head round the upper back and lift the core. And then you inhale, lift the head. Exhale, lift the core. So doing this exercise helps to release tension in the upper back and strengthen the core. Now, there are other modifications that are really great for upward dog as well. It's similar to cobra, but a little different. So you'd be on your stomach, and you can bring your hands in front of you. So you can start with your hands together and lift your head up from here and press your palms, fingers, index finger and thumb to widen your collarbones. And if this feels good, you can start bringing your hands as wide as the mat with your elbows bent and open your chest like so. And you should feel nothing in your low back. If you feel anything in your low back at any time, just pull out of the pose and do something that's more preparatory. So hands as wide as the mat, this is another option, and coming down. So I find that this also helps to open the chest and get mobility in the upper back. Now the next modification is to use blocks, and the blocks give us extra height and they help us to transition to downward dog. So when we transition from upward dog to downward dog, we roll over the feet, and that can be challenging for people sometimes. The feet also need to open and strengthen over time with practice. So without blocks from upward dog, typically you would lift the hips by pressing the hands and roll over the feet to downward dog. So with blocks, we'd start from cobra. It also helps to make cobra more intense. Like it'd be more challenging for cobra with blocks. So you can start in cobra, which makes it more difficult to pull your elbows towards each other, strengthens your back muscles. If you're comfortable from here, press your hands, go to upward dog with the blocks. So the extra height, it makes it easier to pull your chest through the arms and find the strength in your legs. And then from here, you can press your hands and do 1 foot at a time, lift your hips and roll 1 foot at a time to start. And then you bring your feet further back in downward dog and you roll over your feet, come back directly to upward dog. And as you work lifting the hips, doing 1 foot at a time, eventually you try to do both feet at the same time. So bring your feet further back, roll over your feet, coming to upward dog, lift your hips, and then roll over both feet at the same time. And once you feel the action with the blocks, then you can try without and you're probably gonna get close to getting it. So with practice and with assistance of modifications, helps to body to open more slowly and gradually, and it'll start to strengthen and open. So I hope that you enjoy your Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. Thank you, everyone. Namaste.